Hello and welcome to the On Farm podcast. It's Anna with you this week, and I'm recording this introduction actually on a very wet day in East Lothian, but thankfully I chose a very sunny day a few weeks ago when I went along to a farm called Balgone. I took my daughters with me as assistant producers, and we met two very inspiring and go-getting young men who are behind a brilliant set of diversification businesses at Balgone. It might give you a bit of inspiration and a few new ideas, but actually as much as anything, I just came away feeling so positive about the younger generation because these two lads are just fantastic in terms of their business nous. I wanted to say thank you once again to Gillespie McAndrew, Scottish legal firm Gillespie McAndrew, who are sponsors of this episode. As always, we're very grateful to them for quite simply supporting us and enabling this podcast to keep going. Do get in touch with us if you've got any comments as a result of listening, or even any ideas as to topics that we could cover into the future. So you can contact us on Twitter or on Instagram at on_farmuk.
Hi there, my name is David Grant Sussy. I'm just an employee at Balgone Estate, just venturing in the world of diversification for the last 4 years.
My name's Alex Humphreys. I work here as well, helping out with the all things diversification, so pumpkins, sunflowers and more to be seen.
It's a beautiful day here in East Lothian. We're close to North Berwick, and Alex and David are giving myself and my two girls a bit of a tour of the farm. But the first thing we saw upon leaving the cottage was a field of pigs. Why do you have pigs? They're not particularly connected to pumpkins.
So we've actually started our wee little herd of Oxford Sandhian Black rare breed pigs. One day, when our cafe's up and running, fully functioning, that hopefully may be in our bacon.
Oh, delicious. So that's the plan. You've got 4 of them just now, is that right, Alex?
Yeah, so we got 4 boys here, and then on the other side of the farm, we've got 6 young girls as well, and we have 2 mums at the moment, but about to get another one. We're about to have a pig transfer with another farm up in Perthshire.
Cool.
So
that's like the zoos.
Yeah,
don't
exactly.
they?
Very
exciting. Because they're coming from somewhere exotic.
You need football transfers when you have pig transfers.
Yeah, quite. I don't know very much about pigs, but they're quite a friendly breed.
So far, so good. We're pretty new to it as well. They quite like ankles here and there. So
oh, do they?
Yeah, wearing wellies is probably permitted, but they're friendly and they're always quite a nice sight in the morning.
Oh, good. Cool.
Yeah.
And so if you haven't guessed already, or if you haven't yet heard of Balgone pumpkins, that's kind of why I'm here, because I was speaking to our producer Dave the other day and we realised that we hadn't ever covered the topic of pumpkins. And that's why we're here with David and Alex, and they're telling us all about Balgone pumpkins. And as you were saying, boys, earlier on, is 10 acres of an enormous farm, but consumes a huge amount of your time and is actually growing year on year. So I'm really looking forward to hearing the whole pumpkin growing and the sunflowers, because I drove past them on the way in. Where are you going to take us on our walking tour next, Alex?
Well, I think the next stop will be the pumpkin patch. We'll get a good view of the law from there, and we'll venture in a bit more.
Yeah, brilliant. Right, and as I said earlier, I brought my kids with me because they've been here during the pumpkin season, and I thought it would be quite a good educational journey for them as well. What did you think of the pigs?
They're funny.
They're funny, yeah. They're cute, aren't they?
Yeah, they're so cute.
Yeah. You know what I'm going to say next, don't you? I think we should get pigs.
Yeah.
And Daddy would think that was a terrible idea.
What if you wanted to get a goat?
Yeah, I changed my mind about goats because they're really destructive, aren't they?
We've also got some Angus cows over here.
Ah, yeah, enjoying the sunshine.
Yeah, so this lot sunbathing suffer a similar fate to the pigs, and they're hopefully going to be incorporated into what we serve in the cafe. So it's very much a farm to fork orientated outlook we're taking on it.
Totally.
Yeah, it should be open all year round. We're still yet to play rock, paper, scissors, who's going to do the Saturday, Sunday shifts. But once we get that figured out, we're hoping to initially have it open Friday, Saturday, Sundays. And as it grows, hopefully people enjoy what we're doing, what we're serving. To begin with, it'll just be sort of a coffee shop, and we'll be doing home-baked goods, hopefully bacon rolls as well. And then as we grow, we want to, do takeover nights, have some like local chefs in, use local produce, and just turn it into a bit of a hub for people to get involved with local farming, local produce, and get in the countryside and some good views.
Yeah, brilliant. Well, the views are amazing. in kind of every direction, actually, aren't they? It's such a beautiful spot. So we're coming up here. I can see the flowers of the pumpkin field. How has the growing season been this year, David?
We initially started off quite well, got the pumpkins in really good ground actually, but I think, as everyone will know from a farm background or not, got hit by a horrible amount of rain within 3 or 4 days in late May, and that kind of set them back, and then followed that by continually blowing gusts of up to 20-30 mile per hour for weeks on end. It did stagnate them a bit. But I think just the fact that they went in such good condition is really paid dividends. So now they're through quite the stressful time of it, and now they're picking back up, and hopefully the sun that we're getting this July is going to put them back up to speed. They've just started to fruit actually, so as you mentioned, you see the flowers.
Yes.
Basically, the science behind it, the simple science, is the flowers will flower, and we've got our bees over there.
Oh yes.
So you get your bees and your insects from the beehives and the wildflower. They'll go onto the pumpkin flowers, pollinate, rustle it up, and if the weather permits, hopefully come the start of October, that'll transform into a few pumpkins.
Yeah, amazing. So this is your field. It's 10 acres, you were telling me earlier on, or have you got two fields?
This one's 5 acres.
Right, so you've got another one.
Yeah, we've got our picking patch here, which is 5 acres. And then we've got one which is just to the southwest of us, beyond those silage bales, which is another 5 acres. So that's our culinary kind of picking squash, and our white varieties, they're over there. The varieties in here are predominantly just the ones you'd use for carving.
Right, the kind of traditional Halloween ones.
Exactly.
Yeah. I have to say, I prefer the culinary ones. I got quite into baking, like pumpkin muffins and pumpkin pies and all sorts of things, and roasted pumpkin and all that. So this is a big yellow flower.
So you have like a lot of fruits. You have male and female flowers.
Yes.
So this one here is flowered, and you can see it starting to form a pumpkin. You also see a little bee in the flowers.
Oh, yes.
And so we have a local lady who keeps her bees, which you'll just see over there. So we have Balgone honey, which we sell in October, and that is a mixture of the pumpkin flowers, and then we got obviously our wildflower mix, which we do to sort of encourage it, and then the sunflowers as well. So the honey we get is just gorgeous because it's got these like lovely colour, and you can actually see in the honeycomb the different sort of seasons. So you get like the pumpkin honey first in the sets, and then it will be like sort of like a softer sort of sunflower honey. So it's nice to see. But we've tried it. We've tried a few times to lend her a hand with the bees, but it's quite nerve-wracking.
No, my grandpa was a beekeeper, but I don't think I could do it. I'm not quite brave enough.
No.
So look, girls, you see that tiny thing there? That is going to be one of the pumpkins that you will pick in October. It's so cool, isn't it? Yeah. Oh, a bigger one over here. Oh my goodness.
So depending on the variety, you get a different amount of pumpkins themselves per plant. So these ones are terrafin. So these should have about 4 to 5 per plant, depending if they're happy enough.
Yes.
And then the ones sort of further east, there'll be sort of your racers, and there's a variety called Kratos. And they're much bigger. They're sort of 8 kilos, 10 kilos, big monsters, and you'd have maybe 1 or 2 per plant for them.
And do you grow lots of different varieties to keep your customers happy, or to spread your own risk in terms of growing, or a bit of both?
It's mostly for a bit of both, but mostly for consumer preference. It's like you can go and get a standard old bog standard pumpkin from other places, so it's about giving a bit of variety. And we find that a lot of the smaller different kind of ones we've got are actually really popular, and it means if you're a family, you've got a big family, you can buy a big pumpkin, and you have the option to get a few smaller pumpkins, and it makes you've come away with a really nice day out. And as you were saying before, with the culinary squash as well, we really enjoy our squash soup here. Well, we have to.
You probably have no choice, but actually it's delicious. Who wouldn't like it? So David, you've lived here all your life, I presume. We're standing in the field. It's a glorious day. We're surrounded by pumpkins. tell me a bit about how it all started. How did we get to the point where we're standing in a 5-acre field of pumpkins?
Well, it's a long-winded story, so I won't bore you too much. But our first year kind of struck in tangent with COVID. So Alex came and joined us on the farm just minutes before lockdown was announced by Boris Johnson. And it freed up an extra pair of hands on the farm, and we thought, well, we're not very savvy on a tractor, so what could we do maybe to fill our time? And we landed on pumpkins. And yeah, it initially started, we'd maybe have a weekend in October and do it for charity. But it just grew arms and legs. So the first year we ended up having 3 weekends open, and it fell into the same time where people were just about allowed outside. So it kind of worked extremely well for us there. And then this will be our year 5. We've got the same amount of ground in pumpkins. We've just got 5 more varieties. So I think we're 25 varieties this year as opposed to 20 last. But as we were saying before, slightly harsher growing conditions. So we'll see in October which of those 25 are still around to play. But fingers crossed it'll be more than enough. But yeah, 5 years down the line and we're standing here, and it's just growing year on year. So it's been lovely to be a part of. And I don't see us stopping anytime soon.
No. And I guess it's even after 5 years, it's still a learning curve, I suppose. You're understanding which varieties grow best, which varieties people want to buy. And then I suppose as well, the learning curve is customer service too. What is your kind of goal then when you open up for pumpkin season in terms of giving customers a really good day out?
We sort of have like a threshold and a level that we are satisfied with. I'm always working hard to meet that. And I mean, last year was a good example with the weather. You know, we could have just left things the way they were. You know, torrential rain, Storm Babbitt came through, pretty much wiped out our entire catering village out. But you know, we weren't satisfied. You couldn't just leave it and close it. So we worked really hard on making it as warm and cozy environment as we could. You know, get some bales up, get some festoon up. It's a difficult one with pumpkins because it is in October. We'll talk about sunflowers maybe a bit later. But
yeah, I'd love to go down and see them.
It was our first year doing that last year, and we found that it was a breath of fresh air doing an event in the summer because there's like half as much stuff to do. But I feel like there's only one real way to approach an event in October, and that is just to try and be in touch with what your customers are saying and just have a realistic idea of what you can deliver, and try and maybe meet halfway in the middle. Like we work hard to put wood chip down. You'll see from like the gravel, as the pumpkins has grown each year, it's been able to allow us to justify to put the gravel in and stuff like that. So it's the small things like that. You know, if you have a bad car park or bad catering area which is just, you know, grotty, then it just takes away from like all the hard work you put in to make it look nice. So we try and double down on like the fundamentals and then build everything back up from there with the haunted trail. I know you girls like the witches and stuff, but yeah.
What did you do with the witches the last time? Can you remember?
We toasted marshmallows.
Toasted marshmallows, yeah. It was really good, wasn't it? And were they a bit scary, those witches?
Not really.
Not really? Oh, I thought they were a bit. So there's a big, do you call that a marquee? It's not a marquee. What do you call it? Stretch tent, thank you. Is that now up all year round?
No, the winds here are still pretty unfavourable to us, so it's quickly up and down for events.
I'm sure it keeps you very busy. Well, you were saying, Alex was saying earlier that 90% of his time is spent on pumpkins and sunflowers, and David, I suppose you spend a bit more time doing other farm-related stuff, harvests and stuff like that, but probably still a huge proportion of your time is spent focusing on this. Yeah,
a large proportion is spent doing this sort of thing. Alex, as you know, he's extremely savvy with the IT side of things and just streamlining everything events. Bit of a wizard on the IT.
Yeah.
And then the cafe that you've seen. I've been away at uni for the last 2 years. Alex has just kind of completed the Herd Cafe on his own, and you'd be amazed at how much regulations and loopholes you have to jump through, and how much communication you have to be with the council and your planners and your building. And so that probably, maybe 90% for him isn't quite enough. But I've come back, just graduated from Glasgow, so I came back in late June, and I would say maybe slightly more on the farming side of things as well. But as you'll know, amount of farming that actually goes into our diversification is quite a lot. You've got to prep the ground to a suitable amount or the crop won't grow. You've got to manage them as well. We're not blessed with a spray that you can get rid of everything bar the pumpkins, so there is a lot of manual labour going there. We're all working to the same end goal, really, it's just finding exactly who needs to do what and how to better allocate your time, really. But yeah, to answer your question, probably a 75% split.
Wow, yeah, that's crazy, really. But I mean, it's kind of obvious, or it should be obvious, I think, that there's a lot of physical work involved in doing this. But we were talking earlier on in the house, and before we go down and look at the sunflowers, I think this really interests me, because I see a lot of examples that kind of aren't really like this. You guys must be early 20s. Yeah?
Well, getting on
mid-20s.
Mid-20s,
okay, right. And maybe it's a generational thing, or maybe it's because you both studied business and economics at university. I think maybe it's both. But I'm really pleased to hear that you both spend a lot of your time being really analytical about this. You're not just growing pumpkins because you thought it would be a fun thing to do. You're growing pumpkins now partly because you think it's a fun thing to do, and partly because the people who come here think it's a really fun thing to do, but you're also doing it because it's a business. Can you tell me a bit more, Alex, about that analytical side? You know, you were telling me earlier on that you keep a close eye on pumpkin prices, on other patches elsewhere in the UK. How does the analytics help to make this a better enterprise?
Yeah, I think we're pretty blessed with, you know, having studied degrees which kind of puts analytics and I guess just business at the forefront. I think that does help. From our sort of day to day, we spend a lot of time like thinking about pumpkin prices, as you mentioned, and just what the inputs and what goes into the pumpkins and what we can get out of it. Like farming in general, like, you know, your arable farmers, they'll be always looking at like futures, when to sell, when to not. It's just sort of doing the same thing, but we're sort of, I guess, at the mercy of, you know, however many thousand consumers coming through who are exposed to all sorts, you know, like marketing from Tesco's, you know, supermarkets. They've got your local patches, they got your farm shops. So we have to be really on the ball with our pricing. I know earlier we mentioned how we lowered our pricing last year off the back of just getting better at growing pumpkins, essentially. And so that really helped. That took a lot of number crunching to make sure that we're doing the right thing. And I feel like you'd agree, but it definitely paid off. Like, people appreciated, you know, a lower price when inflation was rampant and everything
the
going
cost
up.
of living crisis, you know, you've got to make money, but you've also got to keep your customers happy so they keep coming back in next year. So well, let's take a wander. I'd love to see the new building for the cafe, and we'll see the stretch tent as well, and then the sunflowers, if that's okay.
So we're just walking through our pumpkin car park at the moment, and we're just sort of touching base on how different it looks in July compared to October. And going back to sort of like what we do on, you know, when it isn't October, there's a huge amount of work that goes into sort of improving the farm and making it better for customers to come through. So you see here, we've put loads of new drainage legs in, new drainage to help kind of drain the fields and stuff. So there's that side of things. There's a lot of background things, as we were previously talking, that goes into the farm each year, try and make it better. I think what we found, maybe what I found a bit more, is that with the cafe, is the amount you have to do to make something up to standards in the countryside compared to the city. It's just on another scale. So, you know, drainage here is fine, but, you know, you put a new bit of drainage in somewhere, then you're going to have to improve the entire sort of infrastructure. Whereas, you know, in the city, if you got a building, you can, you know, improve the plumbing, and then it just gets taken away in the sewage system. You don't think twice about it, or you call the council when something goes wrong. But here, it's very much on our own back, and you have to really think about the bigger picture of like what investments will have a good impact or an immediate impact, and what should we think about more long term. So for the cafes, that was a real challenge that we're walking towards now. Yeah,
it looks great. I mean, there's a new fence and you've planted trees, and the building itself is raised up, so it's got amazing views. And we're literally like a week away from opening, so it must be pretty much ready, is it, David?
It's near enough.
Wow.
Open on the 8th. So
So So you'll see here we've tried to make it look as neat and tidy as we can, because what we tend to do is we look back at photos year on year, so back from lockdown up until now, and each year we kind of surprise ourselves with how bad it looked the year before. So we're always working.
Or how good it looks next year.
How good.
There's a big deck and festoon lighting, which I love. But in the cafe, as we've mentioned, I think called Herd, which obviously appeals to me because my business is called Scene and Herd.
Wow. We've got,
but you are nearly ready. Look, like tables and chairs
nice
and flowers and everything.
Yeah, I know.
Big coffee machine.
Yeah.
Brilliant.
Yeah.
This is fabulous. So you have you got staff ready?
Well, yeah.
Or you're
speaking to them. Yeah. We're fortunate enough we're at that age where we can kind of pluck through a few friends who are looking for work, and then David's girlfriend Sophie and my girlfriend Sarah will be definitely lending a hand so kindly,
whether they like it or not.
Absolutely. So yeah, we'll see how we get on.
Are you good at making coffee?
We're not bad. We're getting pretty good.
Was telling us off for going for too many coffee breaks, so we thought we'd just bring the coffee shop here.
You can do Alex can do his office work in here whilst consuming intravenous coffee. Yeah. Nice, isn't it? Do you like it?
Yeah, so smart.
I like the colour, really like that green colour. Have you had any help with the kind of interior design of this? Because it looks really good.
Yeah, girlfriends.
Well, whoever you are, girlfriends, you've done a good job. I think it looks fabulous. And how exciting. Can we go back outside and see the sunflowers? And then from here we can see the stretch tent, which we've been in before, haven't we, girls, when we've been here. And then come busy season, you have catering vans as well, don't you?
Yeah, so I guess on one side we have the stretch tent, on the other side we have sort of local catering vans. We try and keep the options, good for everyone. So, you got your classic toasties, burgers, got pizza, we've got ice cream, churros. That's always, I guess, one of the perks of the job, and during pumpkins and sunflowers, is that you get to have good lunches.
Yeah, you can have a different lunch every day.
Yeah, exactly.
Wow.
So that's, I guess, one selling point we try and entice everyone in to come work at is you get good lunch.
Nice food.
We've been talking about how this side of the farm's growing year on year, and it's definitely something that we're looking to do more. Like the cafe is a big help, and having this cafe car park event space.
Well, I suppose now you'll be using the car park regularly for the cafe, won't you?
Yeah, so we've got all the licenses now to hold sort of whatever we want. So there's definitely the feasibility to go into sort of smaller events. In the summer we're thinking some takeover nights, some nice evening nights. Everything under the sun. We've sort of got the infrastructure now to be able to facilitate that. So it's really just up to how much of an appetite we have and what our sort of workload can handle now.
Yes. And of course now is a really busy time because it's harvest as well. So there's just so many things going on at once. Right, so David, I can see the sunflower field from here. Just a couple of lonely sunflower heads, because obviously they're not quite ready yet. You were saying there maybe they've got a little bit of catching up to do because of the weather, but we're due a really sunny week, I think, this week. So do you think that will wake a few others up?
Hopefully. It's always a wee bit strenuous coming in to work every morning and seeing another sunflower head appear, because we have to obviously publicise our dates quite far in advance just to make sure we've got enough exposure to get the ticket sales that we need. So it is a bit of a guessing game. I suppose we had last year to go off, which was nice, but I'm complaining about the bad weather the whole time. But they went in really well.
You're a farmer.
I know. They went into really nice grounds, and then again the rain and the wind just stagnated them. So they went in 3 weeks earlier this year than they did last year.
Right, gosh.
But they're blooming maybe a couple days before they did last year.
Right.
So it just shows you how stagnating that cold, wet and windy period was.
Yes.
But although they're maybe a foot smaller than last year, we do have quite a good crop.
So they're smaller, but they're still blooming. So
Yeah.
I suppose does that create a problem, or is that just the way it goes?
It's just, I suppose it creates a wee bit of a problem if you wanted to be immersed in a big
In
maze.
a maze, you
but,
kind of don't want to be able to see where you're going. Although it's fine for kids.
Exactly. The smaller you are,
Yeah.
the more fun you'll have, which is perfect. You can see that the heads here,
Yes.
they're all starting to show
They are, yeah.
the tiniest tinge of yellow
Yes.
inside before they're
Yes.
about to bloom. And I don't think there'll be a shortage of sunflowers for people to pick.
No.
It's just like any flower, they have their blooming period, and then after that they do start to pass on over and wither.
Yes,
So
yeah.
you do have to get it right. So people do expect to have a nice view. It's a unique view. It's surreal, really,
Oh, it
because there's
is,
nowhere
yeah.
really
I mean,
like
even though
it.
there are only a few heads out now, you can kind of begin to imagine a
Yeah,
sea of them, and it's just stunning.
it is a lovely view.
How many acres of sunflowers are we standing in now then?
We've got 8 acres of sunflowers this year.
Yeah. How do you plant sunflowers on a scale like
Well,
this?
this is where the farming side of the events comes in handy, because this is just like any other crop, really. You cultivate the land however the seed best benefits. So with sunflowers, it was a few bits of min tilling, and then it got power harrowed to soften up the ground. Dad drilled it with his 6-metre drill, so it must have taken him the best part of an hour to do, although he did mess up a wee bit, but we won't talk about that. And then it just gets rolled, just to make sure that the seeds are got a nice firm seed.
So you can use an ordinary seed drill then, you don't need
Yeah,
a sunflower seed drill.
Not at all.
No.
Not at all.
And then how do you create the paths of the maze? You come in with a big lawnmower or something?
That to an extent, the more advanced part of the maze design is Alex sends his drone up God knows how many meters, and then he barks orders at myself and whoever else is unlucky enough to be on staff that day through a walkie-talkie or a WhatsApp phone call, and shouts north, south, and we're here on the ground with line paint. So we just effectively hand paint the whole trail from the drone, and then and then after that we know exactly where to cut. So when they start to germinate, we just cut, and then they die back, and it leaves the trail behind. That's the magic trick.
Yes, that's clever. Have you gone with a different pattern this year?
Yeah, we've gone with sort of, actually funny enough, sunflowers and bees flying around.
Nice.
Because obviously we mentioned the honey earlier. We're sort of, that's something we're wanting to double down on in years to come, is sort of get a good bee colony up and running here, and seeing as we got the flowers for it, it kind of makes sense.
Yeah. So one thing what we should mention is that for the sunflowers, you are donating a proportion of your profits to charity. Can you tell me a bit more about that?
Yeah, that's correct. We are donating 10% of our sunflower sales to brain tumour research, but that's through a Just Giving page, which is called Brain Power. And obviously Glenn Campbell, who lives at Redside, our neighbouring farm.
Glenn Campbell from the telly.
That's the one. So last year, or almost a year ago today, I think it was on the 10th of August last year, he had his brain surgery to remove his brain tumour. And I think it just saved his life pretty much. So he actually only found out about the tumour because he had a road bike accident. So it was good they got in quick.
Got a diagnosis.
But he's a neighbour, he's a friend, and every penny that goes through his page is going towards building a research centre of excellence in Scotland, because there's not one here. So that's his ambition, is to try and combat and battle against brain tumours. I think it's 1 in 4 people lose their life to a brain tumour after the diagnosed within, I think it's a 2 or 3 year period, which is just awful. So any money that we can do to support that.
And very close to the podcast's heart, because Monty, who is my business partner and co-presenter of the podcast, is also receiving treatment for a brain tumour at the moment. So it's a wonderful charity, and well done for raising money for it. I won't ask you to show me the entire maze in case we get lost, but we'll just go and see this swing, because there's this huge swing, which is often on your social media, isn't it?
Sort of one of our handicrafts that we get going in this time
You've
of year.
made this yourself?
Yeah, everything we make,
my
everything here we
goodness.
make pretty much.
Do you have time to sleep?
We get our 8 hours.
Yeah, we get
Bet you don't. Wow. So yes, it's a huge. It must be about 12 feet tall, is it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
3 meters.
With a huge swing, probably big enough for 2 or 3 children.
Yeah.
You met at school, didn't you?
Yeah.
That's how you became friends and how all this started. But you've gone from school, uni, farming, and now you're kind of in the hospitality industry, which is challenging. What have you learned in the 5 years that you think you will always remember?
I think from the hospitality aspect of things, you can't always take criticism to heart. First year we tried so hard to make sure everyone was having the best time, and any bad review we'd lose sleep over it and we'd think, how can we best fix that? But there's only so much you can do to stop it being muddy on a farm, or
Yes.
there's only so much you can do for pricing. You're not going to please everyone. But as long as you're pleasing a good proportion of people and you're doing it with all good intentions, in terms of diversification through farming, I think it just illustrates and illuminates how important it actually might just be in the coming years. I mean, like we were saying, again, complaining about the weather is so adverse sometimes, and trying to battle the elements is getting harder. So if we can mitigate the effects that has on the overall functionality of the farm, we do everything we can. It just puts more emphasis on how important the sunflowers, the pumpkins and our cafe is going to be. I suppose the events side, pumpkins and sunflowers, they're 2-3 weeks a year. But having the hospitality aspect of the farm all year round with the cafe is our next step.
Obviously there's a bit of a split at the moment between like the pumpkins and sunflowers. You know, it's a bit unconventional, but we're trying to, with the pigs, with the cattle, we're trying to bring like the two elements together, especially with the cafe. In terms of like takeaways, I mentioned it earlier, but sort of just getting the little things right is really important. Dave's a bit of a perfectionist, I'd say. Like, I'm a bit of a perfectionist sometimes, and we always work hard, no matter what it is, to make it like, if you're gonna do it right.
Do it properly.
Like,
Yeah,
and that's kind of what we always try and do. So I feel like that's definitely a big takeaway for us, for sure.
Take care of the details.
Yeah.
And often it is the details that you remember, isn't it? On the way here, when they twigged and the girls realised where they were coming, they were like, oh, this is the place where we toasted the marshmallows with the witches. And, you know, that is probably not a fundamental part of the offering, but it's what's stuck in their minds and what they remembered. So it proves that point, I suppose.
I'll send that on to Mum. She'll be
I
best
didn't
pleased to
realise
hear
your
that.
mum was one of the witches.
She takes a lot of pride in that.
She's
but-
chief witch.
Is she?
She's rich.
Hubble bubble.
Yeah.
Quite.
In
Does she
character.
enjoy it, does she?
Yeah, she's in character all year. Joking, Mum. Please cook me dinner tonight. It is just so important to remember that the traditional farming is just really integral here as well. We just started winter barley, and we need that side of the business to stand up so we can do our side of the business. We do need big cash injections to start new things, and it's got to come from somewhere. Don't ever want to take away from how hard it is to get that side of the business right as well. But
One couldn't function without the other.
exactly.
No. Alex, just before we finish, you're from Wales originally. You came up here for lockdown to enjoy some freedom and countryside. Any plans to go back to Wales anytime soon, or are you feeling quite locked in as well?
I'm pretty locked in. So I've lived in Wales and England for a bit, so I've kind of done all three countries now, which is quite strange. People ask me where I'm from, and I was like, well, I've lived in each one equally, so it's getting a bit difficult supporting the rugby teams.
Well, my dad's Welsh and my mum's Scottish, so when that match is, and I was born in England actually,
right?
So I just support whoever's winning.
See, I don't know if I could do that. I don't know. It wouldn't be too long here if I did that.
No Wales.
Well, thank you both very much
thank you.
indeed.
Thank you
I
very
really
much,
enjoyed
Ryan.
chatting to you.
It's coffee
Thank
time,
you.
anyways.
So there you have it. I don't know about you, but I'm very, very impressed with those two young lads. I think what they've done is brilliant, but I just love their attitude to it, and I love the fact that they're so analytical about the finances and making sure that it's viable, because at the end of the day, why would we do a diversification project if it wasn't going to make financial sense? So really, really interesting, and thank you to David and to Alex for talking to me. The other thanks in this episode must of course go to Gillespie McAndrew, a Scottish legal firm, who are sponsoring this episode once again, so enormous thanks to them. We really, particularly with Monty being unwell at the moment, we really appreciate the loyalty and support that we've had from Gillespie McAndrew, not just in terms of the sponsorship of the podcast, but the support that they've also given to Monty and his family. So big thanks to them. We will be back with another episode next week.